I'm Chandra Luckett, Chief Marketing Officer and your host for the day. In the past 2 years, there's been more of a focus on mental health than ever before. But what does that look like in real life, especially for communities of color where mental health isn't talked about nearly as much? July marks BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And today we're joined by four Chris 180 therapists who will shed light on the stigma and concerns that affect the minority community as it relates to mental health. So I'd love to introduce our panelists for the afternoon. First up is Rita Mathis, who is a clinical supervisor and therapist at the Chris Counseling Center in DeKalb. Next is Rowan Altice, who is the program manager of the Fulton County Clubhouse for Youth. Then we have Dyrell Carr, who is a therapist at the Chris 180 Fulton County Clinical Office. And finally, we have Corolla Torrejon, who is a clinical program manager for our school-based mental health program. Thank you all for being here. As always, audience, you can drop your questions in the chat function on YouTube or Facebook, and we'll be happy to answer those live. And Rita, I'm going to let you take it away.
Good morning, I should say noon, everyone. I think it's really important to start this conversation to talk about how we could maybe shed some light on getting rid of the stigma around mental health. And one of the things I think ways we can do that is to start to educate ourselves and others around what mental illness looks like. The more we know about it, the less scary it seems. So we can encourage our family and our friends to seek treatment because no one should feel like they need to hide their mental illness or their substance abuse from anyone. We're often asked, like, what is therapy and what does that look like? So therapy is a treatment that helps people resolve past traumas. It helps them with maybe family issues or relationship issues. It helps them even to resolve small problems that may not be causing them big problems. And that can look like individual therapy, where you'll meet with a therapist by yourself to resolve your issues, or it could be even a group therapy. And some of the benefits to group therapy is that there's a shared experience and you're around people who might have some of the same experiences that you do. So this is sort of a quick look at what therapy is. Does my coworkers want to jump in and add to that at all?
Thank
Yes.
you, Rita. Thank you, Rita. One of the main things that I want to throw out there as Rita has begun this conversation is to talk about how mental illness is not a character defect. There are many reasons why people develop mental illness. Some are genetic, biological, some are a result of childhood trauma or other overwhelming stress at school. But wherever it stems from, um, uh, we just need to remember that mental health is anything like cancer, arthritis, or diabetes might be. And I feel like the only reason that we say that these things are different is because of stigma. And so this chat is really important because I think the number one thing to breaking up stigma is to get us educated. And the other thing that I might add is that we need to look at our quality of life and our well-being. Mental health is about having well-being in these areas. So that's one thing that I wanted to jump in there, but I know Corolla, you wanted to jump in too. So what do you have for us?
Yes. What I wanted to add is that, like whenever we're receiving like therapy, right? That could happen like anywhere. So it could happen in a counseling center. It could also happen in a school. We have a lot of, ways that we could, provide therapy, right? In the community and in the house. So definitely just want everyone, to remember that, right? That you could really get, mental health services anywhere. Also, Another thing that I just wanted to add, just like Rita was saying, right, that many times we do need therapy because we are, experiencing some difficult challenges in our lives, right? We might be going through transitions, even like whenever we are transitioning from elementary school to middle school, that's a transition. Whenever we're moving out of state, that's a big transition, right? Whenever we're new parents, that's a big transition also that we're dealing with. And so it's important that we, for us to realize that it isn't necessary for us to have like a mental illness in order to seek therapy, but that we could at any point of our lives we do go through things that are necessary for us to talk to a mental health professional in order for us to seek the help that we need.
Thank you for that. And I kind of want to piggyback off of that. In regards to what mental health is and that educational piece. Mental health is a spectrum versus a severe diagnosis. Mental health doesn't have to be severe anxiety. It doesn't have to be major depression. It could be, like Carola said, transitional issues. It could be, day-to-day symptoms that you want to work on that relate to things that have happened in your past or things that have happened recently. It can be a lot of things, and it doesn't have to be as extreme as the picture can be painted sometimes in regards to the words mental illness. It doesn't have to be, an extreme addiction. It doesn't have to be anxiety that has debilitated you. It can be an interpersonal conflict that you want to fix, that you want to overcome within yourself, with other people. It can be a lot of things. It can be skill related. It can be processing. Mental illness isn't, as detrimental or huge as people try to make it seem, because that also comes and adds to the stigma that's created, that people don't want to be mentally ill. But being anxious can be a mental illness, but be mild versus severe. So I want to put that point out there as well.
And I think we were going to talk about maybe some barriers to treatment in the BIPOC community. And thinking about that, with African American community, there has been some historical events that make it hard for African Americans to trust the treatment process. So helping them to feel comfortable with treatment, that has been a barrier. Also, typically in the African American community, they tend to rely on family members or the spiritual community to gain support. So I think that's one of the barriers, is helping them to understand that mental health treatment is viable for them.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. As we're thinking about these barriers, I want us to also think about some of the other things. So she touched on some of those points. The other things that we wanted to bring up is like a lack of trust in the system, legal status, access to resources, some of these things, and some of my colleagues are going to be have an opportunity to talk about this. One that I want to really drive into is for the Hispanic or Latin community, which is legal status. For immigrants who arrive without documentation to this country, the fear of deportation can prevent them from seeking help. Even though millions of children and undocumented immigrants are eligible for health care under the Affordable Care Act, many families either may not know about their eligibility or be afraid to register due to fear. And these fears are not irrational. I think we have to be totally forthright about that as a provider or
I just want to add to what Rowan was saying about, like in our Latinx community, right? Like that there's really like a fear, right? Which is many times, unfortunately, many, abuse in the household. Many times in the household, abuse is not reported, right? Because they're afraid that, like they might be detained, that the police might, come to their household, and then that they will get arrested or deported back to their countries, right? And they have children. So there is a lot of fear. And I think also with the lack of trust in the system, many times we have, like dreamers, for example, right? Like they have been, promised that they will gain a legal, status in this country. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So even when someone goes out to seek, therapy, many times they are afraid of, even like talking about, their mental health history or their trauma with a stranger, right? Because they are, they're fearful, that something might happen, or that things may get, reported, and then they will end up, going back to their home country.
Well, we're sorry about that brief glitch that happened with Rowan, but I did want to add that sometimes biases in the provider can also create a barrier for clients getting treatment. If it can cause misdiagnosis, and so that the client doesn't get the treatment that they need. So certainly that can be a problem in the BIPOC community.
And I'd like to add, on top of what we were discussing with the Latinx community, policing and, fear of being reported, or fear of therapy not being a safe place due to, the history of policing in African American communities, is definitely a big barrier and a misinterpretation in regards to what therapy is. As therapy is a safe place and an opportunity for you to express and kind of discuss things. And we are mandated reporters, but the things we have to are mandated to report are, very specific, and other things, other issues, life experiences, family trauma, family drama, anything. It's a safe place for you to discuss these things. And a lot of times in our communities, it's, take it to church or keep it in the family. Don't tell anybody else anything what's going on with us. And that is a big barrier for the African American community in regards to opening up and feeling safe and feeling that the space is safe enough. So I think that's an important kind of hurdle to overcome, to really become able and open to therapy and getting the mental stability that you need.
Absolutely.
And I know Rose had some things to add. So
sure, thank you. And again, thanks for putting up with my internet glitch there. So what I wanted to note is that, these fears are rooted in reasonable things that have occurred with these communities. And as providers, I think we just need to come out front with that and acknowledge that these things really happened, and we understand, why these fears are there in the first place. And then secondly, as we're talking with individuals and encouraging and arming them with knowledge and tools to seek services, we want to say that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to develop a sense of pride in your heritage, and approach these conversations in a way that communicates, hey, this is important to me. Do you as a provider, do you as an agency also value the things that are important to me? And in that conversation, you're going to build trust between provider and people accessing services in a way that breaks through some of these fears that are out there, and they're real.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a quick question. I want to chime in here. You all have been gone on. You need me here. So we had a question from Andre on YouTube, and he asked, when it comes to citizenship status, would it be helpful or harmful to inquire about citizenship? Who wants to take that one? Anyone? So yeah, I think he's referring to the conversation we had just a few minutes ago. So, when it comes to citizenship, should therapists inquire about that, or should clients inquire about it on the other end as well?
Well, I could see where that might produce some anxiety for clients depending on their status. So I typically do not ask about status in my treatment. And I don't think we inquire about that at Chris 180 one way or the other. So in the work that I do, I don't really seek to find out what their status is, because I think that in itself can be anxiety producing, and it can be a barrier for treatment.
Yeah, I think sometimes that question may be attached to dollars and cents. There could be funding sources that may require that question, and that's sometimes applicable. But I think in those cases, we have to be forthright with people. This is why I'm asking it. This is who is the owner of this information. This is who it might go to. Again, to build that transparency and that trust with that person that's seeking services.
Yep. We can't hear you.
And I think going back to that, sorry, safe space comment, creating that space in which they create the safety of the space is important. So not impeding your curiosity or your idea that you need to know their, legal status, and making sure that they assume the safety of the space in regards to if they feel like saying it, they'll discuss it. If it's not something to discuss, then we'll leave it until they're ready, because the anxieties and other related distress is real. Kind of like Rowan said, it's 100% real. And even mentioning a legal status or something of the sort could create a wall and close them off and make therapy less conducive. So I think leaving it to them is a big part of creating safety.
So I want to pose another thought to you all. How do you think that spirituality impacts mental health, and it impacts people maybe wanting to seek services but not feeling like they can? And how does that affect maybe the minority community? Would love to hear from you all. Carola?
Yes, definitely. I think that, that impacts our, Latinx community, because many times, right, like whenever it comes to like mental health, right, there might be like some beliefs that, you're not strong in your faith, and so then that's why you are experiencing all these symptoms, or you need to go and talk to the priest. Let's go to church, right? Because there isn't really there is like a lack of education also like on what mental health is, and so yes, prayer can definitely help, but it isn't also like the only thing that will help you, because many times we are in need also like in like medication. So maybe whenever we're working with our Latinx community, of course, incorporating, their spirituality, prayer as a coping skill, but then also, making sure that they are receiving the proper treatment that they need.
Well, I know in my experience as an African American, and some of the messages that I got around mental health was that it's a weakness. It's a sign of weakness if you are seeking mental health care, or it's a result of you not having enough faith or believe in God to handle your problem. So as a result, a lot of people who are experiencing it or having that narrative, it creates more anxiety, and it creates more depression and more shame, which increases the symptoms. So it can be a barrier sometimes to get that message from that it's a sign of weakness if you seek mental health services.
And to kind of roll off that, I think in regard to religion is very helpful in ways and can be very much a cornerstone of treatment and support for you, but also also understanding the role of mental health services, and just like any other resource in life, mental health resources in your religion, right? So people are put into your life for certain reasons, and people follow certain paths. Therapists, doctors, skills workers follow certain paths to help you and be an asset to your life, and they're put there from these higher powers. People follow their paths, and I think it's important to realize that medications, therapy, therapists, etc., all are here for a reason, and we're put on this earth for a reason. So it's important to understand, in context of religion, it can be an additional kind of a supplement, a helpful thing, rather than taking away from, your experience with your God or your higher power, or taking away from the power of religion. I think that's a big thing to understand within the stigma of, pray about it, keep it to yourself, go to the church about it. Because, in my religion, God put me here on this world for a therapist to be an asset to other people, right? So I think understanding the role of mental health resources as it relates to your religion is important to help decrease the stigma.
Okay, thanks, Dyrell. One thing that I will say for me, born Catholic, I didn't receive a lot of messages in my upbringing or in my faith to disparage my activity in mental health services. I feel fortunate in that way, but I have to understand too that in other faiths that may not be the experience, or even people that are also Catholics, that may not be their experience. It could be all very different depending on the experiences we've each had and what faith we were born into or what faith we choose to practice now. But like Dyrell said, and what I'll emphasize too, is that these things don't have to be one bag that you go into and then you can't access the other. Certainly they can complement each other, and to promote your well-being. Of course, religion is always something that can promote well-being, but so can mental health, and so they don't have to fight each other.
Yep.
So I want to pose a question to you all from our audience. And this person asked, is it important to have a therapist who has the same ethnic background as I do? Why or why not? And Carola, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that it could be helpful, right? Because it could, the client could definitely, be able to relate more to the therapist. However, I don't think it's, extremely, 100% like necessary, right? Because there are also, for example, like at Chris 180, we have many trainings, right, that could that makes us more cultural competence, and we have also a translation line that you could use, which is called voice. So definitely there is different things that we could use that could help us also when we're having individual therapy with our client, and so that way we could be able to help our client even much better if we have a better understanding of their culture and where they're coming from.
I 100% agree with Corolla. And sometimes it can be an asset, but also sometimes it can be a hindrance for some people as it relates to their experience and their trauma, their culture. A lot of people move, a lot of people have cultural trauma. So sometimes people want someone with an outside perspective. Sometimes people want someone to resonate with something they haven't seen before, which I think is an important point to make. And it's all up to the client to, once again, create that safe space. If the safe space is with someone who looks like me, understands me, and I can relate to, then that's their safe space. If the safe space is someone who can challenge me and bring outside perspectives and give me a different cultural understanding, then that's a safe space. Here in Atlanta, we have a lot. It's a melting pot. So maybe someone wants a therapist that can assimilate them to the culture of Atlanta or the culture of America. Maybe they're foreign. That's an important idea that they might need to bring to therapy, and they might choose someone of another culture. Or maybe you have someone who doesn't understand your struggles or the tribulations that come in your culture, and you want that to be addressed. So it can go either way. It just depends on the safety of the client and what the client sees as safe.
Yeah, thanks, Dyrell. And I think in creating that safe space, we do really need to arm the individual with the ability to speak up for themselves about what's important to them, right? So let's say somebody does want to work with somebody that's of their same background and whatever kind of characteristic that they choose, right? I want somebody that has the same religion. I want somebody that's the same sex as me, or I want et cetera, et cetera. you feel free to just come out front with that and say, hey, this is important to me. This is the type of profession that I want to work with for these reasons. Or you don't even have to give a reason, right? You can hang on to that, but you're in the driver's seat, right? And you have the power to communicate these things that are important to you, that because ultimately you're your best therapist. Well, that's something that I say anyway. That nobody is ever going to know you the way that you do. So if it's important to you, just say that.
And to your point, one of the things that Chris 180 does as a part of our process of bringing the client in is we ask them what their preference is. So from the beginning, we are allowing them space to ask what is going to benefit them the best and what would be the best fit for them, because we don't want to, in our process, create barriers from the beginning.
So I'd love to, as we kind of run out of time here in a few minutes, would love to each of you to talk a little bit about why it's important to seek out help when you need it. So, what would you say to someone who is seeking to build resilience amidst all the things that are going on in our world, from the pandemic to monkeypox to cultural and systemic racism? When you need help, how do you seek it out, and what would you say to those individuals, Tyrell?
So I think one of the biggest things in regards to seeking out help is coming when you're ready at the right time, because you don't want to press yourself and push yourself to do something that you're not ready for, and then it'd be a negative experience. And it's kind of correlating to therapy now. But you want to come when you're ready, and you know that you want to work on something. And readiness can look like an inch, readiness can look like a mile. But when you're ready, that's the biggest part, because you want to make sure it's effective and make sure you get everything you can from it. Also, reach out here, Chris 180, reach out, Google therapist. And Google is real and everything's on there. So you can type in therapist at da 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 da, or therapist that work with this. Psychology Today. Just doing your research and finding what you really want in a therapist or in support, and then going after it. As soon as you make that call, as soon as you connect and get with whomever, it's easy breezing from there, right? The therapists here, the program managers, the care team at Chris 180, we're all here to keep the ball rolling. As soon as you push it, we'll help you keep it rolling, right? So just reaching out, understanding, and kind of the stuff we've touched on today, the biases, the barriers, the stigmas that come along with therapy, and kind of challenging yourself and saying, is this something I need? The same way as if your leg broke, you don't want to sit there and think for 4 years, is this something I need? And then your leg's unable to be used. It's a crisis. It's something that you need to work on. So push yourself to say, hey, okay, I do need this. I want to work on this. I want to walk. I want to, push forward. And then, like I said, that first step is calling. And after that, therapists in most realms, specifically in Chris 180, and, the team that we have here is here to push and help the ball rolling, because anxiety is real. Stigmas, barriers are real, and we understand that, and we want to help you the best we can. So that first step is just realizing it's time for me, or I want to start slow, or where you're at, and just implementing that in a way that looks like calling us here at Chris 180.
Sure, and adding to Tyrell, I just want to add, you want to make sure that you are living a life worth living, right? Like, you want to make sure that you're seeking the help that you need, because you want to be able to live life to your fullest. You want to be able to work effectively. You want to be able to have a good life within your own family. And I think many times, it's hard whenever we are experiencing all those symptoms that are just putting us down and making our everyday living so much harder, right? So then we want to make sure that we're not getting all the way to that point where we feel that we can no longer keep on moving forward. So we want to make sure that we are as soon as we realize, hey, I'm noticing that I'm having a hard time getting out of bed. I'm noticing that, I'm feeling so extremely, anxious when, I'm feeling that I can't, function. Like, we want to make sure that you are seeking the help that you need, because there is help out there, and like my colleagues, said earlier, if you want a certain type of therapist that you feel you'll be able to connect more, definitely go ahead and seek help from that therapist. Go search, go Google, go call Chris 180, and we'll be here to help you.
Thanks, Corolla. Depending on who is doing the study, they say that I think 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 people in America are suffering with a mental illness. So the likelihood that or it's in your sphere, is there. Like Darrell was saying earlier, it doesn't always have to be something crazy. When I say crazy, I mean like high, like, something severe is what I'm trying to say. It can be something that you're just trying to work on and improve yourself. So just seek the assistance, and it doesn't have to be something severe, right? So reach out, open up, become educated. Do not let these things hinder your progress, because we're all striving to be better in some fashion or form. So that's what I would say. Just reach up and seek services.
Well, I just wanted to say ditto to everything everybody else has said. And one of the things we were talking about in beginning this program was stigma and understanding. I hope you have a better understanding now that you are worth getting help, and that you can not only rely on your community resources, but that Chris 180 is also here to help you and to provide help for you to address any mental health service problem you might be having.
Well, thank you all so much for a powerful conversation. We just got a comment from someone on YouTube who said they wish it could be longer. We wish we could stay longer, but these amazing 4 therapists have to get back to work, get back to serving our greater community and each of the individuals in the Chris 180 family. And so you've heard them say it for the past 30 minutes. If you need help and if you need someone to talk to, no matter what community you're in, Chris 180 has culturally competent therapists who are here to help you during your time of need. And as Corolla said, you want to have a life that is worth living. And what a powerful statement to think about. So we'd love for you to reach out to us. We have counseling centers across Metro Atlanta, and you can also do virtual telehealth appointments with us as well. So please reach out to us. You can go on our website, chris180.org, and you can look at our counseling center locations and contact our care team at those locations, and we will be happy to find someone to assist you. Also, everything we do is made possible with the support of donors and foundations and grants and people across the nation who help Chris 180 put on our work. Our largest fundraising event is the Crystal Ball. It is happening in just a few weeks on Saturday, August 20th. We would love for you to come and be a part, or have your company be a part. You can watch it online as well, and we'll share that link in a few weeks. But we would love for you to come in person. You can purchase tickets or sponsorships on our website, crystalball.org. If you don't remember that, you can just go to chris180.org and you can find a link there. Thank you all so much for being a part of this conversation. Please share this video with people in your networks who you think may be interested in learning more about Chris 180 services, or may just need some inspiration, because it takes all of us to make sure each of us are living happy, resilient, and stronger lives. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in September.